Joining us live now is the Nationals Senator Matt Canavan. Senator, good to see you as always on a Tuesday. How long do you think it will be before another French president gives a speech on Sydney Harbour?
Well, who knows? Who knows, Peter? Look, it's all a little tawdry over there. I think this has a lot to do, I think, in terms of when that next might happen. Probably after the next French presidential election. That's my pick. That is due in April next year, and a lot of this posturing from the French president seems to be more aimed at that than us. We're very focused, of course, on the tit-for-tat going on between Macron and Morrison. But if anything, the fishing wars that have broken out between France and the UK are much more serious than what we're seeing about the nuclear subs or submarines more generally. So, yeah, this is, I think, all about domestic politics in France. The Australian government's made the right decision for our national interest here, and we'll get on and make these nuclear subs.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's certainly playing to an audience there. He's obviously bruised about missing out on a deal, which is important to his presidency. But like Boris Johnson said a couple of weeks ago, is he just got to get a grip and get over it?
Look, I'm not going to provide advice to the French president. I'm not that focused on that. I mean, as I say, it's all a bit tawdry, and the fact that we're focused on this somewhat gossipy type behaviour shows how empty the Glasgow Climate Conference really is. There's not much else to report out of it. It's a complete flop. The major emitting countries aren't there. They're certainly not making any commitments to increase their reductions in carbon emissions. So,
big commitment this morning, Matt, from India. It says it's going to be net zero by 2070. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, it's easy to make commitments in 50 years' time. I mean, there's no serious action here from any country. It's been a complete flop, and it raises the questions why we have signed up to this ourselves, particularly before we saw what other countries are doing. Because other countries are not meeting these targets. They're continuing to build coal-fired power stations. And if the world can't even cooperate about submarines, how's it going to cooperate to reduce the temperature of the globe? We need to be focusing on our own nation's defence, like we did with the nuclear submarines decision. The reality is, yes, we have cut our carbon emissions in the past 15 years, but we've also lost millions and millions of dollars of manufacturing. So our emissions are down 20% since 2008, but our manufacturing industry is down 13% over the same time. All we have done is export those jobs to countries like China, and the Glasgow Climate Conference is just another big scam that will see manufacturing jobs, industry out of Western countries be transferred to other countries that are not taking this seriously, like China.
Just one more on India, though. It's vowed to have 50% or complete 50% of its energy requirements and being renewable energy by 2030. So it's increasing renewable energy targets quite dramatically in such a short space of time. I mean, if they can do that, then that would be applauded, wouldn't it, from your part?
Look, I mean, I encourage all countries to invest in energy. I mean, this is the important point the Prime Minister has made overnight. What's really important for countries like India is that they produce more electricity. The biggest environmental problem in the world is not climate change, it's air pollution. Air pollution kills over 4 million people a year. And almost all of that is because of the burning of fuels, sometimes cow dung and worse things, in unflued domestic and small business boilers and stoves. And so the most important thing for countries like India is to provide electricity to their people, because in modern coal-fired power stations, nuclear power stations, yes, and renewable energy, do not create that kind of soot that gives or makes that air pollution. So that will be the goal of India, I'm sure. And that will mean that they will increase, yes, the renewable energy they use and produce, I'm sure they will continue to increase the coal they use as well, because the energy they need is enormous. I mean, if you look at the projections of the
sorry, Matt. No,
sorry,
carry on.
Well, I was just going to say, if you look at the projections of the International Energy Agency, in the first 40 years of this century, we need to produce more coal than we ever have in history before. And that's because there are a lot of people, and people need electricity. And if we don't give them electricity, we'll get very, very bad environmental outcomes like we see with the air pollution through Southeast and South Asia.
Just a final one. I do want to ask you about that communique, the G20 communique, where the language was watered down heavily. I think I know what you're going to say to this, but it moves away from that 2050 target and instead aims for something towards the middle or around the middle of the century. Critics say that's to placate China. It's to placate Russia as well. They've got no interest in hitting those targets, according to the Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, anyway. So what did you make of, just as a closing thought here on that language?
Well, it was no surprise. This was more predictable than the fact that probably a non-Australian horse will win the Melbourne Cup today. I mean, this was always going to happen, right? This is we could see this from a mile off, because we are being played off a break. China and Russia in particular are playing the Western world off a break. We're too trusting, we're too naive, and we're too woke, and we're losing all of our industry and manufacturing and making ourselves defenceless. That's why I'm against this stuff, because all this hypocrisy about the people flying in on charter jets and espousing their moral virtue, that's not going to mean a hill of beans if things go badly and we need to defend ourselves as a nation.
Matt Canavan, good to chat as always. We'll talk to you soon.